Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day, and welcome to our chat about women in marketing with DX3. My name's Roshni, and I'll be moderating our panel today. A bit of background about myself. I'm the founder and CEO of Prosh Marketing, a marketing consulting practice that helps startups with experienced fractional marketing leadership or fractional CMOs. Now, marketing's always been my passion, and I started my marketing career working at agencies and then made my way to some larger global brands like Microsoft and Sony. But somehow along the way, I got my opportunity to work at a startup and really fell in love with the ability to move quickly and build things from scratch. Now, through my 15 years of experience in this industry, it's been amazing to see more and more women rise to leadership positions, break barriers, and shatter glass ceilings. However, it hasn't always been like this. When I started my career, first, there was a lack of female representation in the tech community, specifically within marketing, let alone women of color. This lack of representation is slowly changing, but it can definitely create challenges for us women in advancing our careers and achieving our professional goals. Despite the progress, the gender pay gap is still very real. For every dollar a man makes, a woman still earns approximately 82 cents. And these are challenges that women still face in the workplace and affect not only our earning potential, but our overall progress and opportunities. So for our discussion today, I'm really excited to introduce a really diverse panel consisting of this powerhouse group of women who have made such great strides in their own marketing careers and from whom we can all learn from. I'm going to run through their bios really quickly, and these bios do not do them justice, so I hope you get a chance to look them up on LinkedIn and connect with them and learn more about their stories today. And we'll start off with Haim. Haim is a storyteller who strives to understand consumers in order to connect their stories with brands. As a global omni-channel marketer, branded content expert, and creative strategist, she's worked on the creative as well as business sides, leading all aspects of strategy from content creation to pitching to execution and marketing and optimization. Haim has led both marketing teams and brands across Canada, US, and India, and is currently the marketing lead for Amazon Ads in Canada. Next, we have Anat. Anat Yaniv is the founder and Tag Marketing Services and is a U.S. consumer marketing expert specializing in helping global companies enter the U.S. market. Anat has always been passionate about the global business world and moved to the U.S. from Israel years ago. Anat here had to experience firsthand what it meant to enter the U.S. market. Anat has worked her way to becoming a marketing executive in top global companies like Etsy, Victoria's Secret, and Gap. And during her career has driven more than 200% in year-over-year sales for the largest global marketplace entering the U.S. market, and has developed and executed marketing plans achieving over $400 million in sales. Anat got her MBA in New York and lives in New York with her husband and 3 children. And next we have Jen Proctor. Jen is the CEO and founder of Cultivated Entertainment, a full-service talent booking agency connecting entertainment and brands with the perfect talent. Collaborative, creative, and relationship-driven, Jen has solidified herself in the industry as a go-to expert in talent. Prior to launching her company, she was head of talent at Embassy Row, a Sony Pictures, TV, and digital production company, and worked on the talent representation side on booking desks at CAA and ICM. With almost 20 years of experience, she approaches Hollywood in a unique and refreshing way, while always leading with kindness and compassion. Jen prides herself in supporting social impact and nonprofit work with inclusivity and empowerment at the core of everything she does. With her women-led and founded company, Jen Proctor is the ultimate tastemaker. All right, so as you can see, we have such an interesting group of ladies here today. I'm going to jump into the juicy part of our conversation, which is the questions, but of course we'll leave time at the end for you to jump in with any questions, which will appear here on our chat, and we'll read them out for everyone to hear, and we'll also address them. So we'll first start with this question around challenges. So as women, there's so many unique challenges that come up for us in the workplace. I just mentioned the gender pay gap and representation, but there's so many more, from dealing with harassment to policies that can be less favorable for women as well. I'd love to learn a bit more about your experience. What challenges did you face? How did you deal with it? And how would you coach other women faced with similar challenges?
I can start with this. Thank you for the great intro, Roshni. We're so excited to be here. Just as said in my bio, I was born and raised in Israel, and I moved to the US in early 2000, almost 20 years ago. And as someone that didn't understand the ins and outs of the local working environment, it was extremely tough, overwhelming, and daunting. And I couldn't get my head around how things work here. So not even speaking about getting a job, that's a whole different chapter. But once I did get a job here, I just didn't understand enough the internals ways of working. And that was a big challenge for me. So today I want to focus on two specific examples or topics that I would give this as advice to my younger self. And I wish I knew that when I was, early on in my career. The first topic I want to touch is the lack of understanding of the importance of networking and self-promoting in the workplace. My first corporate job after a few years here in the US was working at Victoria's Secret's Beauty. After 3-4 months of interviews, I was just so thrilled. A little girl from Israel got like her first US corporate job. I thought like I made it. But in retrospect, that was not enough. A few years ago, I was working with a coach, and she had mentioned that actually there was a research that shows that male in the workplace, they actually spend 60, 65, even 70% of the time on networking, self-promoting, and actually doing the work, 30, 35% of the time, while female actually invest the time in work around 80% of the time and actually, invest about 20% of the time in networking. And I definitely was in that statistics. So I definitely noticed firsthand, was focused on the job. I wanted to do a great job. And I'm noticing that people around me and peers around me actually, got promoted, got better opportunities to expose themselves. And I'm like, what's going on here? And then it's not until a few years into me being in the US, I wanted to further immerse myself in the local community, improve my English. So I decided to go to MBA school. And there, in addition to the actual, studying, you also learn the soft skills. And I've kind of learned the concept of networking internally, self-promoting. I was introduced to that there. So definitely, I highly recommend to kind of never stop. Every new job you have, it's kind of just the beginning. You're gonna need to work your way around. Like, don't be shy of celebrating your success, speaking in meetings, do kind of one-on-one lunches. It really goes a long way. And then the second concept is actually something that I was become aware of it much later in my career, and that's the concept of finding a mentor. I was not familiar with this concept earlier in my career. I actually still don't have a mentor, but I became one because that's something that I wanted to give back. And mentor, for those who are not familiar with the idea, is basically finding someone that has experience in their career, doesn't have necessarily need to be in your industry, but someone that you value, that you appreciate, that you'd like to get their thoughts. And basically they kind of help you, kind of think about your career when you have crossroads or challenging moments, or they can challenge you with questions, just someone as a sounding board to kind of help you shape your career. And it's something that I find really fascinating. So today, as an alumni in my MBA, I focus on female international students, where I mentor them and just be their sounding board, navigating, kind of entering to the US. Many of them has just moved to the US, and just be there working on their resume, practicing interview questions. So I highly recommend, if you don't have one, just think about it. Think who in your network, who the person you appreciate. And by the way, I actually still don't have a mentor. So if anyone is out there looking for a mentee, I'm still looking for one. I still have a ton to learn as a female, as a leader, as a founder. So I'm still on the lookout. So I highly recommend to look for one.
Yeah, I can jump in because, it's lovely to add to what Anat shared, which is such great advice. From my experience, I think the challenges are also finding that social network that works for you, right? Because you can't just mix with anything. You have to know where you find the right connections. You have to be perceptive, and you also have to make that effort to go out and figure out those connections, how to leverage that opportunity, how to make the most of it, because things are not just going to fall in your lap. It is just a given that yes, we will have to put a little more effort, but how can we make that effort then work for us in return? If you find a network, if you find a mentor that is really willing to help you, how are you doing more towards that? How are you taking the most out of it, versus just letting it happen? So I think that's really important. Some ways that I've figured is brushing up on my industry knowledge, making sure I'm up to date on trends, brushing up on my skills, making sure I know everything so that when I go to a mentor or my network, I'm not asking questions that I can just Google. I'm asking questions that really matter. It's opinions, it's actually intelligent discussions. I don't want to just go to them and have a conversation for the sake of having a conversation. Also remembering that they're giving you their time. So what is it for them? How are you adding value for them? So I think those are challenges, and those are ways that you can move forward and get better, and also it works for your advantage.
And ladies, that was amazing. Thank you. And to add to that, I think for me, a big piece of my business is the entertainment industry. And it's no sign that the last 5 or 10 years has been immensely changing across that landscape, right? From the Me Too movement to just so much. I mean, even right now, the writers are striking and the actors may be striking soon. So to me, my tips for you is there is so much power in saying no. And the way that you say no is by knowing what your value is. And it can sound trite, but there's moments where I know what I deserve to be paid, or I know what an opportunity looks like for me. And before I go into a meeting or before I close a deal, I have that in my head and I know exactly what it is that I need and want. And if the opportunity doesn't meet that, then there's so much power in saying no, and owning that. Because also on the flip side, I really believe that when one door closes, 75 open. And I've seen it over and over and over again when I've stood up for myself and walked away from an opportunity. There's 10 more waiting for me right on the other side of it. And I think the other thing is, and excuse me for cursing, but being able to weed through the bullshit, right? I think oftentimes the way that we are treated as women or spoken to as women, it's fluffier, it's different. And so I think being able to just call people out, be real with me, tell me what it really is. Don't fluff it. Don't, walk around in circles, and really owning and understanding, what's being communicated to you and what you're communicating back.
I love that. And Jen, just to even hit on one of the pieces that you mentioned, knowing your value is so important. And that's something that even I encountered at some of my first leadership positions. I was just so excited to get the job. I just took whatever they gave me. I didn't negotiate. And then later I learned that there was like another 40 to 60K I left on the table for not even asking. And so like negotiating your salary, especially like entry level salaries, this is going to set you up for future salary growth. And we find that most women don't negotiate because you're just so excited to get this job. You're like, thank you. As opposed to a lot of men will see negotiation as a game. And so they're like, how much more could I get from that? And so if we can change our perspectives and just really know what you're worth in the market, what you could get elsewhere, and then fight for what you're worth, because oftentimes there's always that room. And if we don't ask because we're too shy or we're too polite, we just don't get, and we leave money on the table. So I really, really like that point because it's so valuable for all of us.
Also, to extend on that, the power of negotiation, it's something that I've talked about a lot in the past, but I think oftentimes like negotiating is a skill. And I think educating yourself and really learning like what it means to negotiate and being really honest with yourself about what you have to offer and what, a negotiation is. You have something I want and they have something that you want, right? So everyone has something that they're giving and taking. And so really being transparent with yourself and honest about what exactly is on the table for both parties, and owning that power of negotiation. It's a great skill.
I couldn't agree more. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I couldn't agree more. I just wanted to add to that. that if you arm yourself with enough data, sometimes, as you said, Roshni, like we're so excited, just thank you for it happened to me like 100%. But then if you kind of arm yourself with data coming into those negotiations, what's the salary in the market? Do you have any people you can talk to? So if you come into these negotiations with actual data, which with data you cannot argue and you can present it in a way that's going to make sense, that's just going to make you feel way stronger is coming into those conversations instead of just thank you for just giving me the job.
I just want to follow up on that and second all of that, because it's also about having conversations among us as women in marketing. I think we need to be more open with each other, share our experiences, share our data, tell each other, because that's how we'll be more armed and better equipped to have those negotiations. Because if you don't know, like you said, Anat, if data is important, but how do you get that data? Don't be afraid to have conversations. Ask people, call them up and say, hey, what has been your experience? Do you know what the salary range is, right? And let's also be open to share that with each other. Let's not keep it too guarded, because that's how we as a community of women will grow better. Right? Together is how we'll grow, because otherwise we're all holding each other back. We're just sort of competing with each other, and that's not helping anyone in the long run.
Yeah, totally. So how can we work together to kind of move this all forward and also be transparent in a way that can give each other data points that we can grow from? And so diving in, we've talked about a lot of different challenges, but one specific challenge we face is biases against women in the workplace. A common example is the perspective of the strong, authoritative woman being seen as aggressive. And I know you all come from unique backgrounds, but when we first connected, we all really bonded over that shared similar experiences when it came to confronting biases. So maybe you can tell us a bit about your story and how you handle some of these biases when they came up, and what would you recommend for others in this situation?
I can start on that. I think from my perspective, my lived experience has been of an immigrant, of a woman of color in Canada. I moved here about 7 years ago. And when I came to Canada, I came with over a decade of experience in media, entertainment, and content. And this decade of experience was with a lot of international well-known companies that you've heard of, companies that everyone looks up to. And I had a strong portfolio of work with tangible results, with data, with references, the whole gamut, right? I came prepared. But that didn't work. None of that worked. And I think a lot of immigrants will relate to this experience, because when it came to job hunting, I've seen everything from subtle racism, things like, oh, you're from India, but how can you speak English so well? Excuse me? That's a very strong one. I have a double bachelor's in English literature. I do speak English well. I do write in English. I think in English. But that's something that there is a disbelief when you say that. It does not come naturally. So that shift in mental models, getting them to realize that that is not how people are, that is not how the world is, that is actually a bias. To even disbelief about skills and experience and just dismissal of those, right? There are times when I started in an interview talking about my experience outside of Canada, they would cut me off, interrupt me, and say, I don't want to hear about that. Tell me only about the stuff in Canada. But hey, I've done some amazing, innovative work outside that could be brought here. There are learnings, there are skills, there are transferable skills. There are ways and examples that could bring innovation to this market, and how the perspective of comparing different markets really elevates us, right? So I think all of those came together, and those are biases that I faced. What I felt worked was, one was being very sure, what Jen also earlier mentioned, right? Self-awareness, knowing your worth, knowing your capabilities. I think you have to keep emphasizing to yourself. It's very easy to be dejected and disappointed when this is happening, but just know what you're good at and be firm at that. The second thing is, again, what Jen said, call out on bullshit. Like, I have actually called out people in interviews saying, that is racist. Can you please reword that? And I have been as direct as that, right? So, and it's okay, because you need to say it sometimes. You need to sometimes make it known and put it out there. It's also about finding places and workplaces and organizations that value that perspective that you're bringing to the table. So my job as someone who is out there is to make sure I share that I have these perspectives and how they can bring value. And then their job is to know that and accept that. And that's when you will sync. So finding a place that values you for that difference, values you for that thing that you bring to the table. I think knowing that is important. Don't settle. Don't settle. I mean, sometimes you might be very tempted to settle, but just ask for more. And the more we ask, hopefully we start to get more, right? Yeah.
I think to expand on that too, I think there's a very, very, very big difference between being aggressive and being assertive. And I think being assertive is extremely important, right? And there's a way to be assertive with grace and, to do it in a way that is respectful. And I think, one of the advantages that we also have as women is we have this ability, to be empathic or a little bit softer, right? And so what I've found is that every day, every deal, every client, every Zoom, every call, it's this balance, right? It's this balance between being gentle and soft and hearing what people are saying and understanding and, really kind of listening and taking note, but then also standing up for what you believe in. And I think being able to kind of have that yin and yang and that constant balance, women are just a lot better at doing that than men, right? I think if you're on the phone and if a man's ticked off, like forget the rest of the call, right? But as women, we have the ability to be assertive, not aggressive, but then also bring it full circle and, kind of kill them with kindness, so to speak, and, really turn the conversation around and end it on a good note. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice is don't be afraid to be assertive, but also don't be afraid to you catch more, what's the saying? You catch more bees or more flies with honey than you do vinegar. So yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I couldn't agree more, Jen, with assertive. I've been called passionate. So that was another spin on the word. I'm very passionate in my reviews. Yes, like that's who I am. I said what I think, this is what you get, I don't like mess around or play around. And then, so just to add from just a different angle, there's so many different biases on aggressive and assertive. For me, just coming from Israel, if you're not aware, there is a mandatory military service, and it's kind of very common to put it on your resume. Actually, in Israel, it's like kind of what shapes you because it's kind of the beginning of your career life. So when I moved here, and that was all my experience because I moved here, right after I did my undergrad, and before that I was in the military. That was my resume, 3 years. And then what I've noticed when I came to interviews, it's just people like didn't know how to address it, how to speak to it. Everyone kind of make a joke. Oh yeah, so you did pew pew pew, and like that's it. When in reality, it's actually such a forward-thinking environment, very entrepreneurial. You do a lot of leadership learning and team building, and you learn about strong values. So what I did do, and if you come in somewhat similar situation, I basically humanize it, or I basically rewrote it in a way that I can compare it to a company and to the business world, and that gave an openness and a path for the person across from me that was interviewing me, whether it's an HR manager or hiring manager, to actually come and ask questions. So just as a solution, I kind of made it in a way that's going to be more easier for the person who is not familiar, and I could completely understand that, and I've learned it. And so I bounced it off, friends and family and people I know to say, hey, when you read this, what is the feeling like? What do you learn? And that's kind of how I overcame it. And that gave me the opportunity to say, hey, this is what I did. This is what I learned, 3 years of leadership, 3 years of whatever. So that's how I came to overcome that by making it more humanized or easier to just understand.
I love that. And Haim, you were going to mention something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more note to extend this is, there's a study that was done by Stanford recently on this whole topic of aggressiveness in tongue, which showed that in performance reviews, men were rated more on data and on their performance, and women, their feedback, their performance evaluation included more comments about their behavior, about how they are in the workplace. You are either too aggressive or too people pleasing. It was one of those things, and it was very eye opening, because even when you perform the same, both are not evaluated on the same criteria. And I think that also, as an organization, as a society, we need to relook at it. Are we really being fair in judging women? And no matter how you behave, you're still being judged differently on a different scale. And that's not okay.
Yeah, so a couple of themes here that came out through everyone's answers was the importance of communication, right? Like the ability to stand up for yourself and say what you think and say what you know. And then that communication, how that can transfer into education. Because at the end of the day, if the person who is making these comments doesn't know that this is offensive, then if you're bringing it up, it puts it on the table. And again, it can be done in a way that's genuine to your own personality. It doesn't have to come off as super aggressive. It can just come off as kind, or however your own personality and voice is. So you're being true to yourself and your own personality, but you're speaking up for yourself and you're helping educate people so that they know what's going on. And I find that, at least in my conversations, when you do make that step forward, people sometimes are shocked, but then they will start to understand, or maybe they will start to self-reflect, and that begins their own personal journey to understanding. So without us being able to speak up, and it might be a little bit uncomfortable for that first time, but as we speak up, we become more comfortable with saying it, and we understand that we're actually helping and educating people and paving the way for other women as well, which is amazing. And so how we show up in the workplace also plays a big role in how we can succeed. We talked a bit in our pre-chat about the imposter syndrome, which is really like a real thing for very many women. In fact, a study showed recently that 75% of female executives face the imposter syndrome in the workplace. This is a huge, staggering number, when at the same time, women are still known to have a lot of strengths that we can lean into that are really great for leadership and management. For example, the ability to bring people together towards a common goal, or to motivate people, or to see, people's innate strengths and then try to grow them as humans. And so I would love to hear about your perspective on how women can show up in the workplace and progress.
I have to say that stat, 75%, I actually feel like that's low. I would think that it's 100%. And I'm here to tell you that imposter syndrome is very, very real. And, I think that you're probably not doing something right. You're probably not challenging yourself and pushing yourself if you don't feel that, right? We all go and seek those new opportunities, those new clients, those new ventures that we've never experienced before. So it's very, very normal, to feel that way, and just know that it's not permanent, because once you complete that task or land that client or get through that next project, then you're on to the next thing, and then you'll feel it again. So 75 kind of shocked me. I think I'd say it's 100 in my experience, but yeah.
I completely agree. Imposter syndrome is something that I have experienced for sure every time I kind of switched roles. And now as a founder, every time there's a new client, as exciting as it is, and as it's super exciting for me to meet the new people, to talk to, like, I'm like, wait a minute, can I actually do it? And the funny thing is that every single time we figure it out. It's great. It's not only amazing, and when it's not amazing, we actually talk about it, and everyone makes mistakes, and we figure that out as well. But every end of project comes and said, "Oh, I actually did it, so I need to remember for next time." But somehow, magically, it kind of happens again. So I'm hoping that with practice and telling me that over and over again, hey, you can do it. Look at what you achieved. Look at what you did. It's not going to go away, but it's going to shorten the time that you are doubting yourself.
I want to add by saying that I have 2 tricks that I have used that work for me with imposter syndrome, because like with everyone, that just comes out of nowhere so many times. The first one is finding your safe people within the workplace is important. It can be that one person, it can be someone else, not on your team. It doesn't have to be on your team. It can be someone completely different, but someone you can talk to, lift each other up, vent to each other, confide, and know that it's a safe space, know that this will be respected, and know that you are there to support each other and just tell each other, no, you're amazing, you're amazing. You need that from someone else. You need that validation. So find that validation and build that bubble around you so that you can use that and lean on it in times that are needed. The other thing that I like to do is I have a running word doc that is on my system. Every time I do something that I feel proud of, and in that moment that I feel proud of, I write it down. I write that, oh, today I accomplished X, Y, Z, or I did this project despite X, Y, Z. It's not to boast or brag or anything at all. That's a running list that when I'm feeling that imposter syndrome hit, I open that list and I look at what I've done in the past year, the past month, whatever it is. And it just reminds me that it's possible. We as people have done so much that we forget. Our memory fails us. So let's rely on something that's not memory to remind us of how much we've moved forward, how much we've done, and how much we've overcome, right? Because sometimes we don't realize that. And it just helps. It helps knowing how good you are sometimes and be proud of that.
Yeah, so celebrating those wins. I have a folder in my email that's called Feel Good.
There
And
you go.
yeah, anytime you finish something or someone just sends something, I throw it in there. And, every once in a while, I just go in and reminisce and remember. And so I highly recommend making yourself a folder.
Yeah, and I would say let's not be shy of celebrating each other. I think that's also important, right? Everyone is just a little shy of that. Send a little note to your colleague when you think something's good, when you like something they've done. Send a note to your friend. Just appreciate each other, but because you never know who has that feel good folder where your email might go into. Just contribute to that.
What a great idea. I love that. I'm going to start one as well.
Yeah, same here. Plus one.
And so I recently started coaching, and it was interesting because we talk a lot about self-talk, right? And self-talk and what the stories you tell yourself and how you convince yourself if you can do something has a huge effect on how you show up. And so for me, it's also reinforcing that, yes, you can do this. You may not have been able to do it, but Anat mentioned, you've done other things before and you figured other things out. And so you could potentially do this. And a lot of us are carving new paths, right? The things that we've never done before. So as we try these things, it might not always go 100%, but we have the tools and we have the capabilities, and other people trust us to do this. So we can also propel ourselves with the other people's trust that we can do these things, which is amazing. And so that brings us to our another question around just how do we balance all of these things? Because as all of us are in our leadership positions, some founders running businesses, and as women specifically, work-life balance can be incredibly challenging. We've got to juggle a ton of responsibilities, be it children, be it our households, etc. And we saw this really exacerbated during the pandemic, while many had to work from home and continue taking care of all of their home responsibilities as well. So would love to hear from you some of your tips on how to manage that work-life balance.
Happy to start, or you want to start, Jen?
Oh, take it away.
That's such a great question that I think, we will debate on it for many years. I don't think there is a perfect work-life balance, but I think the key is to, one, identify where you don't have work-life balance, and two, take control of it. And I'd like to share a little bit of my experience. I've learned it the hard way, not once, but twice. I let work get control of my life twice, and that led to burnout twice. You'd think you'd learn from the first time, but I guess not. The first time was actually many years ago, earlier in my career. I just started a position and I didn't know what's going on, but very, very quickly, I found myself working so many hours that I left house very early, almost before the kids wake up, and then coming back at night, either as they go to sleep or after they're in bed, finding myself not seeing them. And then one day, after about a year into the role, my daughter just said, she was 4 back then, I just don't see you anymore. And that kind of gave me a whole new perspective to the point that I discussed it with my husband, and we decided that I actually don't have the capacity to look for a new job. So I actually decided to just leave the job and just like, rip the Band-Aid. And I took some time off, and then I found another job. But back then it was, early 2000, like the phrase mental health was not like a thing yet. So I wasn't aware of like what's going on. And then the second time around actually happened more recently, a few years ago, is I again started, a work already like during or after the pandemic. I was at home close to the family, and yet somehow I find myself working literally in the room and outside of the family here, not seeing them again. This time around, I said, like, that's it. I have to, like, this is where I acknowledged it. I had experience before, unfortunately. I acknowledged it this time. And here are the steps that I took to actually kind of turn this around. So the first thing is I took a couple of weeks to just shake things off. I felt like I had like a gray cloud sitting on me, and I couldn't see like a meter in front of me. It was just, I couldn't see it. So I just took a few days, took a couple of weeks off. I literally did nothing, walked in the street of New York, binged, watched TV, hung out with friends just so I could get some clarity. And after that, I decided that like both myself and my family are going to be a priority. I said no more crazy town working hours. I'm not working those hours again. And that came the haha moment, that it became so clear that I just needed to take matters into my own hand. So basically, up until now, it's all in your head, but all those steps led me to, okay, if I want to control it, I need to take matters to my own hand. For me, it says from now on, I'm controlling my destiny. And for me was to found my company. And I never looked back. So for each of one of you is whatever this is, but it's really all in your head, all those steps, until you actually slowly, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to take control of my own. I want to prioritize myself. So just that process of thinking created a positive halo effect. Is my work-life balance are absolutely like amazing now? No, I work very, very hard, but I can choose to put the brakes. Is that how you say brakes? Like on the car, brakes on when I choose that I have too much, and I choose, you know what? I actually cannot take this project. My team is not ready, so I choose, how to. And if I need to work at night, is because I choose. I had the entire afternoon with my family, then I'm happy. It's my choice to work. So that's how I control it. So it's definitely a process. But I keep reminding myself and working on myself. And I think we talked about talking to yourself, self-talk. You talked about it in your coaching. So it's a lot about that.
There's this viral clip right now of Brene Brown, where she talks about her marriage with her husband. And she says, every day when we come home, we say, you can never be at 100%. So she'll come home and say, all right, today I'm at 30%, right? And her partner knows, okay, I've got to compensate for that. And there's some days where they're both at lower percentages and they have to work together so that they don't want to kill each other, right? And I just think that is it's so relevant, obviously, to relationships at home with spouses and partners, but I think in the workplace too, right? And those trusted advisors that Haim, you mentioned earlier, those people that you trust, those people that are your right hands, being able to really communicate that, hey, I'm not feeling so good today, or hey, I've got a lot happening in my personal life, or hey, I'm going to be a little bit late, I'm distracted on this, that, or the other. I think that communication is really important. And I think also too, one of the amazing things that came out of the COVID pandemic, and I'm sure a lot of you feel this way, but before COVID, every single night on my calendar for probably 2 months out was booked. It was like I couldn't go get a drink with a girlfriend. I'd be like, cool, how's 6 months from now, right? So we way overscheduled. And I think during COVID, it's like we almost sort of stripped away and you realize, who are those important people? Who are those priority people that you want to go to that dinner or you want to take that weekend trip away? and everyone else, you could just hop on a Zoom, right? Not that they're less important, but you can get a lot more done that way. And I think that there really, to your point, Anat, there really is no such thing as balance. And as a mother of two, I had two kids back to back. I, obviously run my own company, so I didn't take any kind of maternity leave. I was emailing while in labor, which, is my journey, and, would recommend for some and not others. But I think it's every day you choose how you want to show up, and every day is going to look completely different. Some days are going to be very work centric and little family. Some are going to be more family and, less work. And I think that's okay. And you have to, wake up each day and set your intention of knowing where that balance is going to lie on that particular day and just own it.
Totally. And show me one man that can email one in labor. One man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I want to add 2 points here. One is I want to bring a different perspective here as a single woman, who has a different view on burnout and things here, because for me, it's not related to juggling family and juggling life, but it's more related to, because you're single, there are sometimes perceptions out there in society for yourself. Sometimes you put it on yourself like, oh, I don't have a family to go back home to. I can stay another hour and work a little more. I can do a little more. I can put more into this, without realizing how much it gets taxing, how much you're pushing on yourself, because there is no external force to stop you. Right. So I think you need to put those boundaries for yourself also, and know where your limit is, know where your mental health has to take precedence, your life has to take precedence, and just prioritize that in ways that work for you. You put in as much as you want, but then also leave it behind when you can, and move forward. And connected to that with mental health, I think that's also something I think is super important, and I think we don't talk about enough. On the flip side of burnout, I wanted to share that, during the pandemic, I was laid off. And that impacted me in different ways, right? So it was more about, okay, now I want to work. I really want to get there. I want to do something, but I'm not being able to. And that was really hard on mental health. So I think also recognizing our triggers, recognizing what is working, what is not working, both with burnout and otherwise, is really important. And building that self-awareness slowly, and making sure we're setting that out there, and we're relying on our community, we're relying on our friends, we're relying on people who are there to help us, and lifting each other. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and we can see across so many different lifestyles and across so many different life stages, all of us have different challenges within work-life balance. I remember what propelled me into entrepreneurship was I was sitting at a window, and it was a sunny day, and I saw these ladies coming out of a yoga class, and I'm working all day, working till probably 9-10 p.m. And I'm like, I would like to go to yoga. I would like to do things for myself. And then I'm thinking, am I living to work or working to live? And ultimately, like when I coach people and mentor people, I think about, what do you want your life to be? And where does work fit into your life, as opposed to where do you want your work to be and where does your life fit in? And so at the end, I was like, I'm going to die single. I'm not going to have any time to date. I don't have, literally, I have from 9 to midnight to date at 9 p.m. So all of my dates would be interviews, because I have no time to weed through anybody. So ultimately, it eventually worked out for me when I gave myself more time, but I wanted to build a life around what I wanted my life to be, as opposed to build the work around the lifestyle. So just food for thought. And so we're coming up to the end. I'd love to end off with your one biggest takeaway for women, something actionable, maybe something that we didn't cover today. If you could share, if you got one piece of advice to share with this group today.
I can start. I think one piece of advice I would say is sort of self-awareness. Combining what all you wonderful ladies have said on this chat, which is, know your worth, have that feel-good folder or document or something, and know know both your skills but also your weaknesses. I think that's also super important to know, because you don't want to be surprised when someone else calls them out to you. So you know where you need to develop or improve, or what is not your strongest skill sets, and know what is your strength, and then start to focus on that and start to push ahead and believe in yourself through that. Just yeah, be confident.
Love that.
Mine would be something I touched on earlier, but it's the power in saying no. I think that too often, as we talked about earlier, it's like, oh, thank you, right? Thank you for the opportunity. That's our inclination as women. Wow. Oh my gosh. Yes, right. But I think there's so much power in when you make the conscious decision to say no. And so just to own that.
Yeah, mine is something that Haim touched earlier in the conversation is, earlier in career, you kind of build your connection and your networks. And usually there's like maybe one or two, you don't need like 1,000. But those one or two connections that are forming early in career support each other, be there for one another, reach out, be active to them and support them and see how you can help them, and really kind of think about, because it's really, really nice when someone kind of reaches out all of a sudden and kind of supports you when, you're going to kind of fall and you have someone to lean on professional wise. So that's kind of my advice.
Excellent. Well, so many great tips here today. We're going to open up the floor to any questions you may have. So we'll see the questions typed into our chat box as they come in. All right, question from YouTube. What tips or skills should a newcomer focus on if they want to enter the marketing field? Hey, maybe I'll direct that at you because you started that.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think, and all of us touched on this here. One is make sure you're up to date with your knowledge, your industry knowledge, your trends, your skills, what is out there, because it's changing. Marketing is such a dynamic field. There is new things every day. What is your focus area, and do you know it well enough? So take every opportunity out there. There are so many free courses. You don't have to spend money. There are so many ways to learn more. So do that. The second thing is networking. Network, get to know people, build your social network, but also always remember and be respectful that these are people who are giving you their time. You're not entitled to their time. You're not entitled to have them help you find a job, right? So be respectful and learn how to leverage that. Learn how to, make the most out of that network. Ask the right questions after doing your research. Make sure, you're proceeding forward, and don't go expecting, okay, I have built a network and made a connection. Now next month, this person is going to help me find a job. That's not the way to go about things. And lastly, resilience and persistence, right? Just keep at it. You don't know. One thing I've learned is you don't know what works. Just a fun fact, my first job in Canada, I got it through Google Maps. You would not believe it. It was months and months of searching. I went on Google Maps. I said media companies near me, and I found them, and I sent applications to everyone with little notes and everything. And one of them responded to me. And like, who would have thought Google Maps would help me get a job? So no door is closed, right? Resilience and persistence, I think, really helps, and you have to just keep pushing and trying for it.
And a little creativity there too.
I mean,
I couldn't agree more. What I'd like to add to that is marketing is a very broad field. So I think doing the research of really what area in the marketing are more interesting to you is like, it's the whole strategy is, there's so many marketing channels. Is it, the email marketing, organic social, paid marketing, paid social, influencers, IRL, stores. There's so many. So I highly recommend to kind of investigate the different channels, talk to the people start making connection, and then everything that Haim said as well.
That was my exact addition. We were, it just is, yeah. I think, it's important to be broad, right? Because, you got to start somewhere, but I think really leaning into the things that you're passionate about, right? Like that's the most important too. Like, and, to Anat's point, if you're passionate about influencers and creators and social media, lean into that. If you're passionate about technology, lean into that, because I think when you really enjoy something and you're passionate about it, one, that comes through on your resume, that comes through on your interviews, but that also comes through in your quality of work.
Yeah, I've really seen that with people who are super passionate about what they do or the people who succeed. So find something you love and then lean into it. Our next question is, do we think that traditional marketing has taken a back seat, especially in North America? Jen, maybe I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, well, I think that, traditional marketing is completely different now. And obviously I work in talent, so I can speak firsthand that, the uses of celebrity and creator used to really just be primarily for, TV shows and concerts, and, they were celebrity. And now it's like, there is no brand, there is no company, there is no campaign really that isn't aligned with a creator or an influencer or a celebrity talent, and everything is talent driven. And I think also the fact that we, again, because of COVID, we really got to look behind the curtain, right, of everyone's lives. What, they're in their living room, they're in their kitchen, this is what I'm eating, this is what I'm doing. And so I think, again, that approach to marketing, it's much more tangential, it's much more personal. And I think it's completely shifted.
I couldn't agree
yeah.
more. Just add to that, like if by traditional you also mean like direct mail and phone, actually those are, I'm seeing across my clients it's actually coming back. So it's also about diversifying your channels. You don't want everything, you don't want all your eggs in one basket. And I agree that there was a shift from super mega influencers to now like micro influencers that are coming off as more like reviews, trusted person for reviews. But I do see now actually going back to like the direct mail, actually like getting a pamphlet in your mail for cool companies, and TV is coming back but in a different way, as Jen said, in a very different way. So I think it depends which channel, but some things, there is a cycle and they're coming back.
What I want to add is, I think what is happening now is there is no longer a black and white. It's not linear. People are not following media in a linear way and advertising in a linear way, and neither are brands. No one's just looking at it as traditional and non-traditional, because the moment you break that up while planning, while thinking, while even mapping your consumer journey, that's where the first mistake starts, because then there is no synchronization. You have to make sure everything flows, everything is connected, your campaign is speaking to each other, what you're saying on social matches what you're sending on a direct mail, and everything goes with each other. Sometimes on a direct email you'll have your Instagram, right? So it all connects to each other, and eventually you have to look at where is your audience and what are the places they're at, and choose based on that. Don't choose based on, I want to do traditional, I want to do digital. I don't think that matters. I don't think that demarcation holds anymore.
Yeah, the lines between traditional and I guess non-traditional is super blurred these days, because traditional marketing is coming back in so many different ways and unique ways. Like Anat mentioned, I'm seeing just the resurgence of direct mail. I'm getting so many more interesting ones, and ones that are looking like personally handwritten, but it's like obviously a printed font. And I'm like, oh, someone wrote me a letter. Oh, no, it's a direct mail piece, right?
Yeah. And also, I would say with the coming of marketing tech, right? What is traditional anymore? Imagine getting something in the mail that is new tech and that's a weird cube that has AR with it. Is that traditional? But it came in a traditional medium. So what is that? Where is that difference anymore? It merges together because you can do so much more.
Totally. All right, so I'm going to end off with a final question, which is, what do you think the outlook is for women in marketing?
I think the outlook in general for women, not specifically in marketing, I think we talked about it. I think just supporting each other, sharing, talk about it like here today, share experiences. We are all, 4 different females from different parts of, the world, and from different parts of, we have different backgrounds, and we share, we talk, and we have so many commonalities. So I think just, keep supporting female, supporting women, and hopefully, I'm seeing a good future.
Yeah,
Go for it, Jen.
Okay. I can tell you, my company is all women, and it's not I think in the beginning it was a conscious choice, and now it's not that there aren't qualified men, but there's just way less, I guess, right, in the interview process. But I think what that means is that women have so many amazing skills, creative, really good with numbers and business. And I think marketing is one of those arenas that really it's 360, right? You get to kind of tick all of those boxes. And so for me, I think the outlook, I think the entire, marketing industry will be women led, here before we know it. And it's the same in the entertainment and media industries too. We have the skills and the patience and the creativity and the wherewithal to take these sectors to the next level. And I personally can't wait to see what happens.
I think everyone has summarized it so well. I think it's only up from here, and we're growing faster than ever. I think all these changes, these discussions that we're having are beneficial as we build each other and we grow together as women in marketing. I also think, there is a movement to help us overcome the biases, and we're learning to speak up more and more. I think that is helping. I think voices are being heard, and that just makes such a huge difference when we are heard, because we can show up, we can stand out in the workplace, and we can do so much more.
Well, thank you all for sharing your valuable insights and experiences. It's clear that as women, we face some distinct challenges in the workplace, but it's also clear that we're capable of overcoming them and achieving really great success together. So let's continue and support and uplift each other as we strive for equal representation, pay, and opportunities. We're more powerful together than we are alone. So thank you all for being part of this inspiring conversation, and I look forward to staying connected and supporting each other on our journeys. Feel free to connect with any of us on our LinkedIn, and we can continue the conversation over there. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.